we got? What do we got?
Oh,
What's up, buddy? Are we ready?
I'm super ready.
All right. There's no music playing. Nope, no music playing just yet. Just doing some audio sound checks. What's up, everybody? Whoa, we got people in here already. What's up, Christian, Hunter, Harvey? What's up, Tom, Mark? Singapore. Whoa, what time is it in Singapore?
California, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Miami, Beverly Hills, Nashville.
Toronto. All right. Your neck of the woods, Rico.
London.
What's up, Florida? I need some of that weather up here in Virginia. Jay, where are you at these days?
Missouri.
Missouri? All right.
I haven't seen anybody from Missouri yet. Probably because it's in the middle of nowhere. Ohio?
London. 2 a.m. in Singapore. Edward. Wow. This webinar is dedicated to Edward. Stones Church. What's up, Diana? What's good? Altoona representing First Assembly, Baton Rouge. India. All right, Samuel. What's good?
Dig it.
Yeah. All right. I think we're good to say, Cheddars, let's do a sound check with you as well. And then Coldest, let's get ready for the we'll start very soon, everybody. We're just doing a couple sound checks.
Yep. Woo.
Hey, I can hear you. I can see you in your avatar form.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that it all works today.
Very good. All right, guys. We'll be back in just a little bit to do the sound test. Coldest, let's hit pre-show.
Whoa.
Lily's trying the Oculus Rift for the first time.
There's
Just imagine going to church where the sanctuary behind the preacher suddenly morphs into biblical locations.
You could attend church from your home, would you? One former megachurch pastor is betting yes.
Is it actually scary though, Dad?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever VR Church webinar. It's so good to see everybody. Hope you're doing well, whatever part of the world you're from. Man, I see people all the way from Singapore, India, Florida. Bring some of that weather up here. I hope everyone's doing so well today. We're just going to jump right in to the webinar today, how to launch a Metaverse Church in 3 days. This, like I said in the description of the website, is not clickbait. In 2016, from idea to launch, VR Church was launched in 3 days. Discovered AltSpace VR on a Friday, and we had our first church service on a Sunday morning, and it was awesome. And we're going to talk about that. It's interesting, that video clip, VR Church, we were on the Today Show and met with Megan Kelly pre-pandemic, and she was like, imagine going to church in your home. Pre-pandemic, we'd probably disregard that. Now in this pandemic setting, so it's pretty wild to think that we all have gone to church at home. So it looks like some people can't hear, so maybe we'll just do a check on that. And audio, again, getting a lot of people saying audio is good, audio is fine. There probably is, at least on my screen, a cogwheel on the top right. So maybe admins, you can kind of talk, chat, tell them to check the cogwheel, because they obviously can't hear me trying to give instructions. But maybe you can just type that in the chat for them to let them know. And there's also that link, Coco, Pastor Coco, that maybe you could point in there about attendee settings. Maybe we can check that out. Well, hopefully people can hear, but let's just jump right into this presentation. I'm just going to be, let's just be transparent. We're going to go quickly. We're going to move through a lot of information. Consider this a crash course. We'll try to take some time to slow and kind of chew on some things. But really, I want you to think about this quote that I read way back in 2016. And this is the framework for how, as a church, as a ministry, perhaps you're a business, in the next few years, we're moving out of the information age and we're going into the experience age. And that's what this quote reflects. The information age is coming to a close. The experience age has begun. And now we're looking at new terms. Remember the first time you heard about Google, Facebook, you're like, what is that? And then now it's commonplace. Well, here's a bunch of new terms coming for this new experience age. Web3, Metaverse, blockchain, virtual reality, augmented reality, cryptocurrency. I know it's kind of like wrapping your brain around that. Your church and your ministry just got in, Web 2 down. You got your live stream going, and some churches haven't, but you got your live stream going, you got your social media going, and now you're hearing this stuff about virtual reality and metaverse. So I think it's awesome that you guys are in here to learn about how to launch a Metaverse Church. And I'm really excited about the churches and ministries that are going to be launched in the Metaverse, because that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit. Pre-pandemic, went to a Facebook conference. Mark Zuckerberg, this is before branding of Meta, this is a few years ago. And he got up on stage when the virtual reality conference and talked about 1 billion people in VR. I don't know that it hit the headlines, perhaps like we know it could have been, but this 1 billion people in VR is significant. One of the largest, most influential companies has put a goal pre-pandemic, pre-rebranding to Meta, to say we're going to have 1 billion people inhabit virtual worlds. And so for us, we're going to have a little framework. Perhaps you have something like this for your ministry, for your church, for your business. If not, this is something you can borrow. This is what VR Church does. We have a little framework that we work through, and that's to explore, experiment, and establish. And so we'll talk about each of those different things and the impact that has, the psychological impact of exploring these metaverses first. We're not going to launch yet. We're just exploring, we're checking things out, we're visiting different types of events. So then we'll move into experimentation, which I think is a critical part. I've been in ministry for over 20 years, all types, school camps, small churches, large churches. I was a campus pastor at a multi-site church, and oftentimes that middle ground gets missed. We'll explore an idea, and then we want to establish it and let that be successful. But there's a whole middle ground that I think bridges to help create new things, and that's experimentation. So we'll talk about that as well. Just a little bit of background about me. I had my Bachelor's of Arts in Bible at a Baptist school in Florida. Spent some time in Christian education, also in broadcast television, and then I became ordained as a minister with a Pentecostal denomination, and I was one of their campus pastors and helped launch one of their first multi-sites, did some online church for them as well. But now, and this is crazy, looking back over the story, I'm the pastor now of VR Church, and we also call it VR MMO Church, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. If you would have told me years ago and showed me this image where you say, you know, you are going to be preaching in the metaverse, I'd be like, well, what is that? You're going to be preaching as your avatar. I don't know if my brain could have wrapped around that concept, but I think it's fantastic. Let's do a quick timeout, tech check. Can you guys see the slides? Slides working? You guys see images and pictures? Can I get a little shout out in the chat? All good, good here. Thank you, James. Thank you, Tom. All right, good. We'll keep it going. I just thought I saw a glance that said someone couldn't see that. So now we're in the metaverse. We have these communities inhabiting these virtual worlds. This is an image of the first church service in virtual reality. This is back in 2016. I had just left the physical church that I was a part of, the multi-site church, and I thought I was going to go plant physical churches, and then realized that we believe God wanted us to plant churches across the metaverse. And that's what we've been doing. So if you've heard of VR Church, or maybe you're hearing about it for the first time, it's less of like one church and more like a church planting movement is really what VR Church represents. If you think of like church planting in Tokyo or London or San Francisco, it's the same idea. There are these virtual cities, different metaverses that we're planting churches in, and we'll give you a little bit of a background about that. So here is a couple things to think about. I know the chat's going quick, but feel free to ask questions, and we're going to try to answer a few questions during the chat. We're going to try to keep this to a tight 90. We get a lot to go through. And then at 90, we're going to try to shut it down because I know you guys are busy, got things to take care of. And then there's going to be an after party. We're just going to come back here on stage, and it's just going to be relaxed, going through any questions that you guys might have. So we might not hit a ton of questions at the moment, but we'll hit them later. Show notes will be available after the webinar. Pastor Coco, thanks for setting all of that up, and you'll meet Pastor Coco in a little bit. Sponsor break, the church digital. He also has a term called phygital, so I'm getting all that mixed up. The church digital with Jeff Reed. And so thank you, the church digital, for sponsoring. I really appreciate that. They help to create new biblically solid churches in phygital, kind of like a hybrid, digital, and now in meta spaces. So, and Jeff Reed will be here later to talk about some next steps, because right now we're introducing some ideas. It's going to be a whirlwind. You're going to try to have all this information in your head. And for some of you, you're just kind of like kicking the tires. I just want to learn a little bit. But for others, you're going to want some next steps, and Jeff is going to come and talk about that in a little bit. So we'll have that in a bit. All right, first things first, a little poll. It's going to come up on the chat, and that is, what stage are you in the metaverse? Are you guys ready to launch? Are you looking to launch soon? You know, what's you're exploring the possibilities, or you're ready to launch? Maybe kind of click on that poll just to see what you guys think. What is your reaction to that? Be interested to see what that's for. All right, Pastor Jason, Pastor Jate, come on stage. We're going to introduce you guys. Did we get, I know JPO was having some issues, but Pastor Jate, why don't you come on stage, and I'd like to introduce you. And if we can find Pastor JPO, I know Coco. Yeah. Oh, hey, Jate, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you.
He said that he's getting here as soon as he can.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, we have you with us, Jate, and we'll introduce JPO. I call him JPO. His name is Pastor Jason Poling. Pastor Jate, And I know you don't call yourself a pastor, even though you are. And I know you don't call your church a church, even though it is. But tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, and just to introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, how's it going? My name is Jade, and I'm a full-time live streamer. And I also run Love Clan, which is mostly a Discord. It's also a group of streamers and other things like that. But essentially, we are trying to reach gamers specifically. So this generation is gaming's become huge, and I've worked at churches kind of similar to yourself, where there's just feeling like I was maybe not as much reaching out for the people and kind of waiting for them to come to me at the church, frankly. And so now I spend every day playing games and hanging out with people and just kind of trying to be a light in a maybe otherwise dark place. And,
yeah, I love it.
We have that with Discord and with Twitch. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been a part of your streams. You've taught at Virtual Reality Church. You've come and been a guest speaker. Oftentimes you come to one of our church plants in VR chat and you kind of bring a crew with you. So I think that your insight to what Virtual Reality Church is like, what Metaverse Ministry is like, I think is going to be good. So good to have you. We'll bring you back here in a bit, and we'll get JPO up here. Somebody ping me if JPO gets online. So let me know when he comes, and we'll get him here
10
on
minutes.
Probably 10 minutes. Perfect. We'll get him up on stage. Excellent. Thanks, Jake. All right, my friends, let's jump right into it. 3 days to launch. Now, it doesn't technically have to be 24 hours or, you know, an 8-hour thing. It's just like a phase, a mindset. You're coming in here, and perhaps you have to report to church leadership about what the metaverse is, what your plan should be. And I want to propose to you that your plan should be to explore, to say, hey, leadership, we are going to explore the idea of church in the metaverse, small groups. If you have an online church, an online campus, man, the metaverse campus is a no-brainer. That's a natural evolution of church online. So you're going to explore, you're going to check things out, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is. But first, what is the metaverse? You guys are like, man, I'm just kind of getting my brain around Web 2. Now we have to talk about Web 3. And so really the metaverse came from a sci-fi novel. I don't know if anybody in the chat has read Snow Crash. This is a sci-fi novel about virtual reality. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. I don't know that you'll learn a ton about it, even though I do recommend reading it, just to see the sci-fi aspect of what the possible future is of social interaction. So Snow Crash, put it on the list. It's not educational. It's going to be entertainment. But also, really, if we're talking about the metaverse, we can't not mention Ready Player One. I remember reading this book before metaverse was even a thing, before virtual reality. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing glimpse into the future. Again, it's sci-fi. It's Hollywood. But it was just interesting to see these virtual worlds you can inhabit, where you went to school, where you went to work. They even talked about, it was a little blurb about going to church. And so that was in Ready Player One. Read that years before Virtual Reality Church. And now I actually would recommend, maybe you don't have time to read the book, watch the movie. Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, if anybody's seen that. Nathan Webb says the audiobook is the best version, 100%. So maybe check out the audiobook. And Theo just said that the movie is really good. I think it's great too. Again, Hollywood, but it's this idea that's a shadow, a glimpse of what's to come for the metaverse. But at a technical, dictionary level, the metaverse is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with computer-generated environments and other users. I know that's very technical, and maybe we'll dive a little bit into it, but it's the internet evolving into a 3D, interactive, immersive environment where we're socializing, we're banking, we're thinking of crypto, we're thinking of Bitcoin, we're going to church, going to work. It's this whole world that's coming. I don't know that it's actually here yet. You know, we talk about the metaverse, but the vision of Ready Player One and Snow Crash, I don't think is fully here. We're at the beginning. You think of the early days of the internet or early days of any technology. It's emerging. It's kind of working itself out. In the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be mind-blowing because what we're seeing now is so powerful and so compelling. And this is an image of me after church hanging out with some of our attendees in one of our church plants in VR chat. And, you know, when he's doing that little peace sign, he's actually doing that in the physical world. He's like lifting his fingers, and I brought him close to me, and I'm holding a camera out just like you would in the physical world. This 2D image doesn't like give the justice of what it's like to be there, turning to him and talking to him, taking a selfie, having a conversation. So we're going to be talking about explore. And again, let's look at this experience age, a new computing paradigm, because we're entering the fourth computing paradigm. The first one, anybody ever do DOS? You're just typing away, doing DOS back in the day. Any DOS users? Perhaps you've done it before. DOS, James from Pastoria. Tom is saying, yes, you guys know DOS, first computing paradigm. This is how we're interacting with information. And then that computing paradigm evolved into the second one, which is graphical interfaces. We're not doing DOS commands anymore. We're taking the mouse. There's this tactile experience where we're clicking on windows or programs. Also, now we have the third computing paradigm, which is the smartphone. Just a radical revolution of things we've experienced. I don't have to spend time on this. You guys already know Web 2, the smartphone revolution was just unbelievable and continues to be. And then now we're entering this fourth computing paradigm. It's just being birthed. It's working itself out. But even right out the gate, it's very compelling. So we're talking about exploring these metaverse platforms, and that's what I want to encourage everyone to do, is just go into explore mode. Maybe you already are, continue to do that, and we'll talk about other things in a second. But Coldest, if you don't mind launching the metaverse platforms, and because we're going to talk about some of these things. We're going to be talking about 4 different platforms I think you should experience, 4 different platforms I think you should really keep a focus on. And let's see here. Here, I'll go ahead and launch that. There we go. All right, there we go. And so the first one, and the one that I highly recommend you checking out, is where we started at in 2016, and that is AltSpace VR. That's the one that I really recommend, and we'll give some pros and cons to each of the platforms. Again, when you look at this image, it doesn't seem compelling. It feels like Wii characters. They don't have legs. It seems weird. But when you're in that space, it is completely different. Here's another metaverse, a VR chat. And we'll talk a little bit about this one. This one is like Ready Player One. AltSpace has its like maybe a closed version of avatars. VR chat is wild. It's like it feels like the movie. What you see in Ready Player One with Steven Spielberg is what you feel in VR chat. It is a wild place, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. There is going to be a dark horse in this metaverse race, if you will, and that's going to be Rec Room. I think, spoiler alert, if you're here to think about youth experiences in the metaverse, Rec Room hands down. I don't know that I would recommend this for maybe adult ministry or an adult church campus. Could work, but this is more tailored toward the youth, and the things in this platform are killer. Micah, if you're doing youth ministry, Rec Room is 100% what I would recommend you go into. You can build your own space, your own environment. You can have your own laser tag facility. You can have your own bowling alley. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, and we'll talk about that as well. And then the image you see here is Facebook Horizon. I think it's called Horizon Worlds is the technical name. And it's new. It's out the gate, so we'll talk about some of that as well here in just a minute. All right, so let's, we got AltSpace VR, we got Rec Room, we got VR Chat, we got Horizon Worlds. There's some other metaverses. You might have heard of Decentraland and Somnium Space. What's interesting about those is they're connected to the blockchain. These are not yet. The only problem with those other ones is they seem a little bit buggy and unpolished, and that's why I'm not bringing them up in this webinar. But these metaverse players, and I've highlighted AltSpace because I think that's where you should start, unless you're youth and you go to Rec Room. But let's break it down a little bit. AltSpace VR. Here's some Coldest, you can hold the video for the AltSpace VR for now because I want to get into the pros and cons. Let's talk about some pros and cons. First of all, it's great for events. If you're looking to launch your online church, morph it into a metaverse campus, AltSpace VR is the best for events because they have good moderation tools. You can give moderating rights to people on your team that can mute, that can block, that can kick, all that type of stuff. They have a thing called front row technology. The other platforms are limited to like 30, 40, 50 people per space. But with AltSpace, you can scale that to thousands. Now it'll create different servers, and it's called front row technology. So what I do on a Sunday, if we go beyond our first server and we start to go in a second or third one, I'll turn on what's called on air, and that'll broadcast me to different rooms as if I was there. It's a really amazing technology. So front row technology is a pro, good moderation tools, and then we'll talk about world building in a bit. This is a pro. Maybe some people think it's a con because it's backed by Microsoft, and so that from when I talk to the technical members of my church, they say that AltSpace, because of that relationship, is developer user-friendly in terms of modifying the client. So there's some more advanced things that you can do in AltSpace. And there's video playback. So if you're going to stream your services into here, you're preaching, this is the only one that can do it. VR chat a little bit, not really in Rec Room. So that's why AltSpace is a great event place to start. A few cons. Occasional bug, running some bugs and problems. Usually they get worked out. And then it's a con, backed by Microsoft, which I know is contrarian. But we've seen in the past, like Microsoft shutting down Mixer and just shutting down big initiatives. And so it's kind of like it's a pro and a con. You know, I think it's here for the long haul, but you know, that's something to think about. And slow response to a bug fixes. So that's one thing to think about when it comes to AltSpace VR. Coldest, run VR chat for me. Let's talk about, we talked about AltSpace, and just a quick question. Can we get a link to watch this video later? Yes, we can. Yep. It should be on demand and emailed to everybody. VR chat. Let's talk about this one. This is a metaverse you should explore. Okay, you might not launch a church, a ministry, a campus, or, you know, I wouldn't launch a youth ministry here because this is the deep end of the pool. This is the wild west of VR. It can get a little trolly, a little hacky. There's some dark elements that can be associated with VR chat. Some people have said, why do you have a church in a VR chat? Because of its of the dark things that are associated with it. And I think, well, you just answered the question because of that. And so we have a church plant in this metaverse called VR chat. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. We love it. But it is unique, and we have to deal with a lot of trolls. I would probably rate it PG-13, and we love the community there. We love the church there. And here's some pros and cons. First of all, it's the most immersive metaverse experience. AltSpace is cool, Rec Room's cool, Horizon World's very cool. When you get into VR chat, it can be mind-blowing. Some of the worlds that you visit are just like, this is beautiful, it's amazing. And the avatars can be lifelike, you know, hyper-realistic skin tones. So the avatar system is amazing, and it's, I believe, the most highly populated metaverse at the moment. The cons is yep, it's the wild west of the VR, and it's the deep end of the pool. Hackers can break the experience, and it can be a little trolly, a little bit of a PG-13 kind of vibe there. So that's why I would not advise. Explore, check it out for yourself, but I would not advise youth going into this space. Rec Room, I love. And that's what I talked to you about, define trolly, like trolls coming in. Actually, we have a little quick thing later on in the slideshow about trolls. But Rec Room, if you, like I said before, youth experience, you got to go in here immediately. Go explore immediately. In Rec Room. I think it's just an awesome place. Yeah, Coldest, you can run the Rec Room video just so people can see it, a little bit of it. The avatar system is a little bit, lack of better words, juvenile, or, you know, not as advanced as, let's say, AltSpace or Horizon Worlds or VR chat. So that might be a turnoff, like as far as bringing adults into this for like a small group or a metaverse campus. But I think for teens, I think it's amazing. I think it's an awesome, the tools, the experiences, the world building. You can create your own club. You can create your own, and by club I mean not like you know, like a dance club, but like an organization. You can gather together. You can have your own facility, and that's so unique. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. That the metaverse is an equalizer. What I mean by that is, you know, I've been part of physical church for a long time. I've been a part of big, small, and mega churches, and oftentimes there's a disparity, right? Like the church I was a part of, is not a bad thing, you know, multi-million-dollar budget, you know, youth had massive facility. And then, you know, maybe down the road, This youth group had, only 10 people, very small budget. The metaverse is an equalizer to the degree that when you go in there, we're all equal. Like whether you have, $1 million budget or $10, you can go to Rec Room and have fantastic facilities. And it's so unique. And that's been an observation for me as churches have come into the metaverse, that we're all kind of on equal plane. Whether your physical church is, 10,000 or it's 100, we all just look the same in the metaverse. I think it's super unique. So Rec Room, great for youth experiences. I think the most fun metaverse platform because it was built around games. If your children are into Roblox, this is like Roblox VR. It's just like an evolution of Roblox. I think it's going to be huge. I think they got a lot of backing, funding as well. And I think it's the most innovative team. They're just very innovative. And here's the killer thing about Rec Room. Here is the why it beats the other platforms in many ways is because it can be accessed on every device. VR, PlayStation 5, Xbox, mobile, iOS, Android, literally everything. Well, maybe not everything, but most things can access Rec Room. And I think that's a killer feature. That's a great approach. VR is obviously the best and most immersive, but if somebody doesn't have VR, but they have an Xbox, they can jump right in. So cons, the avatar system is for a younger audience. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't mind it, but I could see how maybe if you're trying to get a mature audience in there of adults, they would feel kind of like, like it's too young. The social experience can feel immature. Just walking around, you just kind of might be an immature feeling there. And the interface can be overwhelming. So with their innovation, there's just a lot to navigate on their trying to figure things out. Horizon Worlds, very simple. Everything just kind of makes sense. Rec Room, you just kind of have to stare at things and, all right, let me click here and let me click here a little bit. All right, we'll get to some questions here in a second. Horizons Worlds, you can skip the video there just for time. Coldest there. But Horizons World, actually go ahead and play it. Let's just look a little bit about it. PS5, yes, Christina, PS5. Yeah, it seems to me that the best option should be the ones with the most users. Are there stats on this available? Like, do you mean, so follow up that question, like how many can fit in one room? That would probably be Altspace. They all run about 30 to 70, depending on the intensity of the room. Altspace has that front row technology to multiply to scale to thousands. But yeah, Rec Room, maybe Cheddars or JPO, maybe you can type and tell me how much a Rec Room can be a part of, like people. Images here, this video, Facebook Horizons, was just released. This is Facebook, or I'll just say Facebook, Meta's Metaverse here. And let's just talk about a couple things. Pros, it's backed by Meta. Some might think that's also a con, but what they have there is commitment and funding, and it's not going to go away. In my opinion, I think it's just here for the long haul. I think Zuckerberg and Meta are committed to seeing virtual reality, the Metaverse, and Horizons World succeed for the long haul. Now, here's a major con. It's only accessible to the Oculus Quest 2, or Meta VR. So you're not going to use like an Android or iPhone, PS5. There's no 2D version. Like Altspace, you don't need VR. You can just come in on 2D. It's just really very limiting. And so that's the one major hesitation for us as a church to go in there. And I think we've built a little world. We've been exploring, doing our little framework of explore, experiment, establish. But that's the like killer point for me. I like it. I think it's good, but I think it's only accessible to Meta VR. Recommendations for VR goggles, Jack, that's coming up next. And here's the other thing, nothing new or compelling that doesn't already exist. So Rec Room, Altspace VR Chat, they just seem to have better tools at the moment. Now, again, to be fair to Horizon Worlds, they're just out of the gate. So a year, 2 years from now, that landscape could totally change. All right, questions break. Jate, if JPO's here, come on stage. Let's take some questions. Coco, do we have any questions we can, well, while we're doing that, let's introduce JPO. Pastor Jason, the first church, if not, I think the first church, physical church, to launch a Metaverse campus. JPO, how's it going, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Doing well.
Good to see you, man.
Barely got here. I'm doing well.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good to
Hey,
see you.
Jake gave a little 30-second who he is and what he does. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm Jason Poling. So I'm up in Northern California, just north of Sacramento, and I'm a pastor at an in real life church there. Been here about 4 years as lead pastor, and we as DJ just said, we launched a church in the Metaverse, which was 2 years ago now, and so now we've got a few campuses, and it's been awesome just to see the merging of the Metaverse churches, even with our IRL people. So there's a lot of stories shared back and forth, prayers, lots of stuff to talk about with that. But it's been really cool to see that happen between all the souls and all those different churches across the world, and in my little church in Northern California.
Yeah, I love a couple of things about what you're doing, because you came in like a year ago or more. How long ago was it?
I think it was 2 years we started talking about it, and then we jumped in right there at the very beginning of the pandemic. So year and a half, a little over a year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah, because a lot of churches are coming in. Our friends at Life Church just came into the space, and that's kind of like pushing the needle to influence other churches as well. But you've been doing it for like a year and a half, and there's some unique things that I want to talk about with you. As a physical church, a year and a half ago, you got into the Metaverse. What was that like? Was there some issues with church leadership, with elders, or casting vision? What was that like for you at that time?
You know, it went more smoothly than I could ever have hoped. I wasn't sure what people were going to say about it, but I think the pandemic did help. That was, I know there's not many blessings with the pandemic, but that was one blessing for me, is that people were realizing, wow, we probably do want to go online a little bit more heavily, and so that was helpful to me. But I did take it slow with them. We didn't like announce a big launch of a campus at the very front end. We just kind of, as what you're doing today, we explored. We started to meet people in the Metaverse, learn about them, share the gospel. As we saw stories emerge, we were sharing those stories, especially with key, missionally minded leaders in our church. And it just sort of took fire and spread. And people were like, yeah, there are people out there, real souls that are hurting. And it really, once we actually announced more of a launch, like a full church there, it was almost like they were ready for it. And our church is not all a bunch of 20 somethings, I mean, I've got a number of people, 60, 70, 80, and all of them, for the most part, have just been super excited about it. They just love seeing the gospel go out and everywhere, in all the worlds, including the Metaverse. So it really went smoothly for me. That was my story. I don't know if that's a story for everybody, but I think there are some strategic things you can do, and we can talk about that later on really leading your congregation in the physical realm into the craziness of the Metaverse.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, there's some things I'm going to pick your brain about, because I believe most people here are physical churches. So I think they're going to relate to your kind of pathway. But Coco, if you could bring some up, I'm going to bring one up too. I just saw from Nathan Webb. My community has found Discord to be the best digital community app. Jay, I wanted you to speak to this one. What space are you sending people that that find you on VR? So for me, it's Discord. I think all of us are on Discord, 100%, right? Jay, talk to us a little bit about Discord. That's a killer app for me and for our community.
Yeah. No, Discord was how I got started really in a lot of this. Outside of just playing games and meeting people, we started with like a Destiny 2 clan. Again, I knew mine started with the people I needed to reach. So God said I need to reach gamers. And so that's kind of the direction that I went. And for me, I was playing games with people, but games are, a game ebbs and flows, right? Like one game might be popular one day and then it's not popular the next. And so there needed to be a way to communicate beyond just the game. And on top of that, if somebody has something that they're struggling with, then, we want to talk with that in person. So, or talk more in depth, I guess, really. So Discord is, I'm trying to think of what's the easiest way to explain it, other than if you've used Slack, it's very similar to Slack, but it's more used outside of business, where Slack is pretty much business. If you haven't used Slack, it's very similar maybe to like, it's kind of a mix between Facebook Messenger and Facebook groups. So you can put specific chats. You can make it do whatever you want it to do. You can say there's a channel that is only for music, and people can assign themselves a music role so they get access to the music role. So it's a good platform for separating out chats and making, whereas if I had well, Love Clan has over 1,000 members. And like, if I put 1,000 people in a Facebook Messenger group, there's no way that we would be able to even read anything that was going on, right? So instead, being able to separate it out and say, this is for this game and this is for this conversation. And it's just good for segmenting out chats and being able to, you know, whatever. So yeah, I think Discord is probably, well, for me, it was necessary. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think D. Riddick was wondering, is it better than Facebook groups? In my opinion, yes. I guess it depends on the user and your community. And then he's actually Pastor Coco, if you don't mind adding the Discord link to the show notes, that'll be awesome. And then Pastor Coco, is there another question we can bring up during this time? Let me know. The other question was, do you have different teams for different churches? And generally speaking, yes, there is some crossover, but some of our teams are more focused on, let's say, on Altspace, on VR chat. And then we have a whole MMO church side, which is a whole other webinar. Pastor Coco leads our Final Fantasy church. So, yeah. We have
there was a question that I brought up a while ago that what kind of people should we be looking for to be the preacher in a metaverse? That is, can existing online preachers run with this? Or do we need an online Christian gamer VR expert who can then do an online church? And this needs to be the last question because we're time.
JPO, what do you think about that?
Yeah. I think you definitely want to have it's critical to have a team very quickly. I mean, I would encourage you to definitely launch with some partners in your physical church, people that really understand the gaming world, understand the culture there. But I don't think it's for me. I mean, I love gaming, but I wouldn't say I'm like the one who is fully engrossed in all that culture. But I came in and just did the same sermon that I do at my two services in my in real life church, and I didn't really know a whole lot about everything about the gaming world, and so it worked. I don't know why it worked, but I think if it was just me preaching and I didn't know, I think it might be difficult. But having a team with me that understood the nuances, that was really helpful. So and now I've known, as I've been there and gotten to know the people, now I know a whole lot more about the culture, which is really exciting. So I think it's probably a combo of having good people around you, but anybody can do it. I don't.
Yeah. And then real quick, do you have some people that teach or volunteer that are like zero technical, like they just want to follow this vision that you're leading? Yeah. You have stuff like that?
Absolutely. Like that? Yeah. There's one guy named Tom. He's just a wonderful guy. And he's actually got a lot of physical issues. He's probably in his 60s now. And he's a passion to reach the lost. And he was excited about it. So we got him an Oculus Go at first, but now he's got the Quest, and he knows nothing about technology. You do learn, obviously, as you get in there, you start learning some of the basics. It's pretty simple. It's pretty user friendly, but he's in there. He does a small group. He does some prayer time groups. He's taught before for us, and it's really just encouraged his soul. And that's been neat for the physical church because he's so connected in our physical church over the years, and he's in his 60s, and he's been passing on that vision of what he's been seeing. And it's really just lit a fire in the older generations as well.
Yeah, thank you, JP. I was just looking at this one. Maybe we'll, I like this question. Maybe we'll bring this in doing the after party because this is a good kind of deep question here. Pastor Coco, if you don't mind copying and pasting this, I don't know if we'll lose it in the queue of questions, but like I said, we'll do an after party where we'll answer any questions that are left. But we'll probably just keep things moving, just so that we can keep to time. So yeah, people were asking about. We'll skip this. We'll talk about this more. Actually, no. Let's hit this real quick. Just a couple seconds. JPO, Jate, which metaverse do you like the best?
What do you think, Jate?
Go for it. Go for it.
I think VR chat. I think I just really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's so unchurched. Sorry, my camera keeps going out. It's so unchurched and so lost, and people are so desperate there. And not that isn't happening in all the other platforms, but I think VR chat's unique in that way. And I just really love being able to interact with them and encourage them and show them Christ. I just love it. It's a crazy place though. In fact, this last Sunday, I got kicked out of my own sermon 2 or 3 times because we had a troll. We don't have that happen very often, but the troll just came in and bombed the place. And but people just waited around. You know, that's people are used to that in the metaverse. So I got back up in my sermon, and then some house mix dance music started thumping, and I'm just like, you have to roll with it. You know,
that must have been the same troll that came to me. A guy came to me, gave me the finger in my face, and you know, we just love them. We say, hey man, I see you, and then he actually went and sat down after. I was like, hey man, I love you, guy. The guy that gave me the finger, he was like, oh,
I love it.
Okay, and then he sat down in the pew and listened to the sermon. Yeah. Can you block a VR chat room so trolls don't attend? So you can create like friends only. So let's say you did want to start a community, just do whoever's on your friend list can attend. You can do like private invite only. So there is some level, but we do, for the most part, public world. So anybody can attend. Sometimes we do have to do friends only world if it gets too crazy. We'd be like, all right, guys, we're having a lot of issues. I'm going to create a friends only world. Come follow me. So Jate, 30 seconds. What do you think?
Yep. I thought we were going to be in disagreement. Mine is also VR chat. I have the most time in it, you know, like I think there's some others that are maybe similar to it, like Neos, that could potentially, but just for right now, people are in VR chat, and the same thing you're saying, like I'm much more mission based than anything. So for my heart, like VR chat is the field, right? Like the harvest is plentiful when I think of VR chat. I will say almost all of my time, probably 90-something% of my time, is in Japanese only servers. So I actually use it as a way to get immersion into Japanese only places. And from that, then I meet people that are kind of like learning Japanese, and then they join the live stream, and I have a better opportunity to talk with them there than just the one-off that I would have in VR. So everybody has a different way of using it, but yeah, that's. And I also don't have to deal with the trolls as much in the Japanese only servers for some reason. Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks so much. You guys go off stage, bring it back. Moderators, Pastor Coco, you know what? Just start grabbing all those questions to put them in that question queue, because we'll at least do them for the after party. I see a lot of great questions. We're going to keep things moving. So you can just start populating that. I know that was really only for ones we wanted to bring on the show, but let's answer all those later. This image on the right side is one of our VR Church board members, Al Michelle. She'll be here a little bit later just to kind of encourage you guys. And so this image just represents the best platform to start is AltSpace VR, to start there. However, my prediction is Rec Room may be one of the leaders in the metaverse race. I think they're going to be the dark horse. So we'll get into that. Hardware, let's talk about that quickly. We got to keep things moving. There's many manufacturers. And here's the top 4. In my opinion, maybe there's some other ones, and my VR community can disagree. Maybe put into the chat which ones they think are the best. If you have VR, put it in the chat. I'm curious what you're using. Meta or Facebook. I used the Rift S for the longest time, but now I'm using the Quest 2. And short story, Quest 2 is the one to get. We recommend the Quest 2. It's the best. It's standalone. You can connect it to your computer. It's portable. Now, for you gamers and geeks and technologists who want the best, Pastor, I want the best resolution, most powerful. The Valve Index is what you need to jot down, put on your wish list, because it's a little more pricier, significantly more expensive than the Quest 2, but also arguably the most powerful and best VR experience. But then there's the HTC Vive. I think Jate uses that. And then Sony just announced their PlayStation VR 2. So Rec Room is on the PlayStation. You can access that as well. So, and this image just represents Quest 2, the best. That's where you should start. And we highly recommend that. So day 1 homework for everybody. I saw in the poll that what stage are you in the metaverse? 88% exploring the possibilities, 12% ready to launch. We'll talk about you ready to launch people in just a second. But for you, 88%, here's your homework. You got to go create an AltSpace VR account, in the very least. By the way, check them all out. But go create an AltSpace VR. I believe it's Microsoft account these days. I think they're switching over to a Microsoft. Take some time to create your avatar and attend as many AltSpace events as you can. All of them, all different types. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be well-run, they could be disasters. You just got to go there, experience it at all. At the bottom, you see it says, be familiar with moderation tools in all the platforms. Know how to block, know how to mute, know how to protect yourself, because trolling can be intense. And so that's something that you should be fully aware of in each platform. And as you bring people into this space, make sure that's a point of education. Because especially if you're bringing a leader into a public world and your church leader, and they're just trying to get a handle on it, and they get, in the unlikely event they get, trolled or whatever, you want to be able to say, hey, just block them, mute them, let's do that. Let's see here. I thought I saw something I wanted to talk about in the chat. I think the chat's going quick. All right, let's keep this thing moving. So here's like an example of the events on AltSpace VR, like on the top left, VR Church, on the middle right, Cornerstone VR, that's Pastor JPO. And then there's singing contests, there's anime watch parties, there's all different types of events. Go attend them all. Now on Sundays, it just used to be VR Church and Cornerstone, but now there's a bunch of churches coming in. So go check out how different churches do ministry in virtual reality. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it, although I do think there's a direction we should go with it. And I'll talk about that later, but check them all out, man. Explore, do all that. We'll do questions here in a little bit. Did we do the poll? How have you experienced a virtual reality? Yes. Okay. A good over half of you have. That's important. And we'll talk about that later. Panelists, just for time's sake, we're going to bring you back here in just a bit because we want to get on to day 2 of launching a church in 3 days. So we talked about exploring, and now I think this is huge. We got to think about experimentation. Like I alluded to before, part of large churches and large organizations, we want to explore idea and then establish it. That's not a bad thing, but what I've noticed is we have to launch like successfully. We have to have tons of people attend and salvations and baptisms. But I think there's a middle ground to be had, and that's you really need to experiment, particularly since this is very new to this whole paradigm of just the 2022 and the future that's coming. I think experimentation is very important. Side note, that picture there is one of our first elder meetings that we had at VR Church. We had an elder meeting on a space station. That was a lot of fun. So let's talk about experimentations. There's a couple things you're going to do. You've explored, you've checked things out, you're kind of feeling comfortable, you got your VR legs going. Now you want to create a world, and we're talking about AltSpace VR, and you want to create an event. And so they're very simple to do. You can have this metaverse world, a metaverse within a metaverse, in a matter of minutes. You come into AltSpace, you put in your name, you put in your description, you can create an event. But enough of me talking about it. We have Cheddars, who's going to show a video about what it's like to start a church in virtual reality.
Honored to speak to you tech-wise during this webinar about how easy it is to get a church set up in AltSpace VR. First step, pray. Second, create a Microsoft account. Third, create an event by going to altvr.com, events, my events, schedule an event, add info, select a world template, create and add as main event. Fourth, learn the moderation tools, which are under host tools, mute all to mute the audience except hosts and presenters, amplify my voice to be heard everywhere in the event, toggle stage blocker to allow non-hosts and presenters on stage, host panel to see who is talking with open mics, mute and possibly kick people, allow hand raises under participation, and give raised hands megaphone or stage access. Step 4 is all that is needed to preach in AltSpace VR. Steps 5 through 12 are optional. Fifth, add slides and videos using either Ben's Slides MRE with Slides.com, the web projector with Microsoft Edge, or the multimedia player. Sixth, add notes using the AltSpace VR Quest web browser with your notes on a web page like on Metaverse Ministry Network Wiki, or using a stationary multimedia player that is only viewable from one side. Seventh, set up volunteer roles like hosts, presenters, and moderators. Eighth, set up live streaming using OBS and possibly Restream.io for multi-platform streaming. Ninth, learn Front Row to scale your events from 50 users to up to 40,000 users. 10th, learn AltSpace VR world building, being able to place objects that are in collections called kits. 11th, learn Unity, the game engine, to add custom 3D models to AltSpace VR. 12th, learn MRE or mixed reality extension development to create custom, scriptable, interactable objects similar to Ben Slides. For more information, go to metaverseministry.net with the VR-friendly URL of mvmn.wiki, or send your question to question@metaverseministry.net. thank you for listening.
Thank you, Cheddars, man. All right, so that video is going to be part of the show notes that we'll email after the event. So I know some of you are like, wait, I need to write down this information. We'll have that video for you. Cheddars, if you don't mind coming up on stage just for a minute, we just want to introduce you real quick. Cheddars is a volunteer with VR Church and with Pastor J-Po's church, Pastor Jason Pooling at Cornerstone. What's up? And he's coming to us from the Metaverse. What's up, Cheddars?
It's good to see you and talk to you, and thanks for letting me be able to speak.
That's awesome, man. So what world are you in right now?
I'm in a prayer breeze, a world that we created about a year and a half ago to pray for world hoppers as they come through the space.
Wow. And what kind of people have you seen come through? Have there been people that you've had opportunities to pray with? And is there maybe a story you can share about that?
Because people that are into edge technologies tend to be very open-minded, we find people, about 50% of them want to receive prayer. You'll find some new age people, and so you just clarify to them, hey, we're praying to Jesus. You'll find some people that are, want to share their beliefs, and then you go ahead and have a fun conversation with them. And then you also find plenty of Christians who are looking for community, and you point them to VR MMO Church or Cornerstone Church and Altspace VR. Or now there's another 5 that joined in the last 4 months. So we're going to have to be checking those out too.
You know what's interesting, and I love that. There's unlimited possibilities in the metaverse. We're talking about campuses, we're talking about small groups, but you have a ministry world, a prayer world. People can just go in there to pray. I think someone in the chat was asking about prayer in just a second ago. What I think is interesting, and I know this isn't the main part of the webinar, but if we could just side trail just for a minute. In the physical world, it would be tough for you to volunteer at multiple churches, right? Maybe your pastor would be upset, like, why are you over there volunteering? Do you attend here? Do you attend there? But you're attend and are a volunteer with multiple VR churches, and that's a new thing to wrap your brain around. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts are that, one, it's a lot easier because there's no drive time. You can literally go from church to church to church. Second is a lot of the skills, as long as you're on the same platform, carry over. So if you know how to do slides in one session, you can do it in the next. Third is any media assets like 3D models. It's really easy to reuse them between churches because you can give them as kit collections. And so that's been really helpful to help them with that. And then finally is, again, because people that are open to edge technologies tend to be open-minded, you find that these churches aren't, say, hey, you need to stick with us and only us. It's blasphemous that you go to another denomination, But I see United Methodists working with evangelicals, working with Assemblies of God in this prayer space. And it's so praiseworthy. And I just want to thank God every day that I've had this opportunity.
Yeah. And there's something about the nature of virtual reality and the nature of the metaverse that really loosens the grip of, I don't want to say gatekeeping, but just these attitudes that we've had in the past. I think the metaverse introduces a new, thought construct to this whole idea of church, decentralized cross-collaboration, cross-pollination, all those things. So thank you so much, Cheddars, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it, man. It's great. Cheddar's mentioned in the videos this idea of world building. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because this starts to get into the advanced aspects of church in the metaverse. But I want to touch on it real quick because this is where you should be heading in. You might not launch here. It might be a year or two away, but world building is really what's going to create your church or ministry from a Web 2 church to a Web 3 church. Culture is heading towards a Web 3. And it's a great start to stream your messages in. And I think that's a great selling point. If you're trying to convince your church leader to be a part of the metaverse, it's a great starting point. But in the next, I don't know, I'm just kind of giving you an estimate, 4 to 5 years, you're going to want to transition into a Web3 church. That's going to be a hard transition where there's a significant energy in the metaverse, and world building is going to be a part of that. For time, Coldest, we have this in the show notes that we'd have video of something like world building with their hands. It's not very technical. I could take anybody from this group, technical or non-technical, into Altspace VR, and we could create a world like this. So at VR Church, we're not streaming messages. That's a great way to start. As a matter of fact, our first couple of services, just because I was transitioning out of the physical church, I was hustling, just trying to make ends meet. I didn't really have time to prepare sermons. So I had video sermons from Life Church's open resource, so Pastor Craig. But then realized very quickly that when people are coming into the metaverse, they're coming to the matrix. Like imagine plugging into the matrix and then sitting down and watching a screen, right? It's like that's a good start, but you want to head into the experience age where people are experiencing the scriptures like they've never had before. We think we've seen it all, but there's this whole world to explore. And I just want to kind of create a plant a seed about that. So look at this. This is an image of a VR church with the older avatar systems. But this is the story when Jesus was on the shore and John and Peter were fishing and they couldn't even bring in the net. And we're reading through the scriptures and we're experiencing the world that they were in, maybe not one for one, but this metaphysical representation of what it's like. And I know that there's sociologists that will come in later and kind of explore things, but my observation, unscientific, just pure observation, is that discipleship and the retention of scripture is at a whole other level because of the tactile experience of world building. Instead of just like hearing the scriptures, maybe reading it on a slide, you're walking through it. You're at the burning bush and there's this animated bush in front of you. You're walking through the Red Sea. You're feeling it, you're seeing it, and it's this immersive environment. And that alone, and from my observation as a physical church pastor to a metaverse church pastor, has seen an increase in what I believe to be the imprint of the scriptures and the imprint of discipleship because of the scriptures. So I think it's something very unique and something you need to explore. Like here on Christmas, we just didn't talk about the nativity. We actually walked into it. We recreated Bethlehem. And I'm there on the top delivering the sermon. We're reading through Luke chapter 2. And people are coming into, and there's a whole host of people behind them waiting for their turn to walk into the nativity. But VR Church started out very simple. This is our first church building. A sushi chef from Japan made this for us. And then we had somebody build this in Unity, this church building that you see here, kind of like a traditional modern megachurch. But here in 2022, we recreated VR Church into this almost like fantastical experience, kind of like otherworldly. And this is an image from this Sunday or the Sunday before of us in worship preparing to go into the message. So world building is something just to keep in the back of your brain. If you're ready to do that, man, you should do that 100%. But I think we're trying to take baby steps here, right? We're trying to wrap our brain around exploring and experimenting. And when you're in Outspace, go ahead and experiment a little bit. You'll have your own home space and you'll see world building and you can start, bringing objects out with your hands, trees, and you'll just place them physically or in virtual reality just with emotion, putting them down in front of you. When we think of world building, because maybe some of you are there, Coldest, launch this video because Pastor Coco wants you to think about some things.
Rita Singleton, also known as Pastor Coco in the VR MMO Church community. I'm one of the elder pastors at VR MMO Church, and I run our church plant in Final Fantasy XIV, which is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or MMO. I'm also a professional UX designer for virtual reality applications, meaning I study humans and how they interact with technology, and then design experiences with those humans in mind. The easiest way to get started with a church in VR is to use the pre-existing environments, or worlds, that come included with apps like AltSpace, VR Chat, and Rec Room. Then, as your community and your volunteers and your resources grow, you may want to start using custom worlds or theme-based environments to support the content that you're teaching. It's been my hope for a couple of years now that we could have a repository of pre-created worlds that are optimized to the specific platforms that our ministries can choose from, much like what you can get now with Open Network or Ministry Pass for the platforms you're currently using. But until then, for those creating these worlds, or later for those assessing them for use in your ministry, you're going to want to have a basic understanding of UX best practices for VR. Understanding things like ease of access to your virtual world, how to minimize the risk of motion sickness and eye strain, and the social and human aspects of virtual reality will make a positive difference in the worlds you create for your ministry. You can read all of the best practices I've published so far on my website, the UX for XR Toolkit. And you can dive a little deeper with video lessons on my YouTube channel. More content is being added regularly.
All right, thank you, Pastor Coco. Pastor Coco leads our church, our MMO church in Final Fantasy, which is a whole other webinar about MMO church. We're just talking VR church today. Pastor Coco, you want to come on stage real quick? Just a couple of questions for you. And again, I think you should start out with the templates that Altspace have. They have some really nice basic worlds to start out with. You just click on like theater room. Like if you're here because of Life Church and you've seen images of their Metaverse Church, that's a template. Anybody can use that. You use that template. That's a great way to get started. Pastor Coco, thank you so much. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, your ministry in MMO Church. That'd be awesome.
Like it said in the video, I'm a pastor of the Final Fantasy plant that is about to actually officially launch this Saturday. And we've been in soft launch for a while. And I'm also a professional UX designer for XR. I've been designing for over 22 years for multiple platforms, most recently VR, specifically about teaching XR. And I actually teach classes on that for people that are trying to transition into that space.
Yeah, that's been really good to have Coco on the team because we have our World Build team, and there's been a couple of times where we're like, is this too much what we're asking people to experience? And so we've had to like ask Coco, what do you think about this design? What do you think about this layout? Because you really have to think about that as people experience it, to try to keep it simple, but you're also trying to make it a unique experience. And so, but thank you, Pastor Coco. We just got ordained recently with VR Church. So congratulations to that. And I think we have an ordination for her in Final Fantasy on Saturday for the MMO Church. Were you going to say something?
Everyone's asking for the links. Those will be in the show notes that we're sharing at the end. So you'll have all of that. Is that going to go out on email or what? Yeah,
it should go out on email, and then we'll also post it at the end of the webinar. So thank you, Pastor Coco. Yeah, appreciate it. So world building, that's something you should get into. It's more of an advanced thing, but really you could have someone build it. Like in VR chat, I don't know how to do this. We had someone that did this world for us in VR chat, but that shouldn't stop you at all from any of these experiences. There are templates in Altspace. There are templates in Rec Room. There are worlds you can borrow in VR chat, but just go, launch, get started. Like this is the first church service for our church plant in VR chat, and we just use an empty room. So I think people kind of look at VR Church now and they go, wow, look at that amazing world. But oftentimes it just started very simply. And I think, you'll see images of VR Church, or maybe you'll see an image of our friends at Life Church, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. But I think it's just about getting started and like exercising that muscle. And then you'll get to that point, which I think is a really powerful thing about the metaverse. Let's talk about a couple of things. And really what I want you to be thinking about is experimenting with community, because here at this point is where many church leaders get hung up on, at least in my observation. Can you have community in virtual reality? You possibly can't have discipleship. Some people like the idea of accountability, all these different elements that we think that are only exclusive to the physical church. But really, and I have this slide later on, you can do it all. There is some powerful community, the nature of the technology to be right in front of somebody. But aren't they going to be fake? They're an avatar. They're just going to, change their persona. No, we've actually found the opposite to be true. The anonymity of the avatar has led to deep authenticity. There's just something about it that I can't explain and that you have to experience, where you're going to have deep level conversations. I don't know. Maybe it is the feeling of an avatar and the anonymity and not feeling judged because of what you look like or what people you to be. You can just talk authentically, and I think there's some powerful elements to that. And here's that quote: "The anonymity of the avatar leads to deep authenticity." So you're seeing this in 2D, but the immersive aspects of VR are so compelling. And I think that's really important to realize that you can have friendships, you can have discipleship, you can have community, absolutely, 100%. And so why should we metaverse? We're talking about the nuts and bolts of what and how and when, but why? And for us, our motivation personally is taking church to where people are at. And I really want you to kind of think about this. I know Oftentimes we're trying to keep up with the latest trends. This large church is doing that. Maybe we should do that. I talked with a pastor a year ago about Metaverse Church, didn't seem interested. And now it's like, oh, we got to do it now. There's like this big kind of like reaction to churches going in. And so what's your motivation? What's your heart to go into this space? Is it to love people? I think that is one of the reasons that motivates us. And I think that's what drives us at VR Church. But I really want you to hear this video from one of our other pastors at VR Church, Pastor Alina. I think you're going to love it.
My name is Alina, and I'm a pastor here at VR MMO Church. And I want to take a moment and just shift gears from how to launch a church in the metaverse and talk about why. Why do we want to bring our ministry into the metaverse in the first place? And there are many reasons why. And I'm living proof of just one of them. Easiest way is just to tell you a little bit about myself. Before I was a pastor, I was a flight attendant for about 20 years until I became ill, chronically ill. It's been 12 years now. And this condition, erythromyalgia, it is literally means fire and pain. It's caused by temperature changes, and it's excruciating. And so I've been homebound for the past 12 years. It's the only thing that gives me any relief, any control, any minimizing of my pain. And I know I'm not the only one out there. But I was cut off from everything, cut off from life. No more work, no more play, no more socializing, no more church, no more meaning. The days just blurred together. TV, sleep, if you're having a good moment. I thought this was it. There is no cure for me. This is the rest of my life, until I put on a virtual reality headset and walked into Allspace and discovered Virtual Reality Church. That changed my life in the most amazing, most radical, most beautiful ways. My first sermon with Pastor Soto, he gave me hope where I'd lost it. I know I'm almost out of time. I wish there could be part 2, but just know there are people like me who can't come to you. And for you to bring the love of God, the power of Christ to where they are, it's pretty amazing. And I'm just so excited that so many of you have chosen, to take this leap and move your ministry into the metaverse. Because I promise you, you're going to touch the lives of so many people who never could have been reached, would have been lost without you. So thank you so much. I know I've gone over, and just God bless you all. I wish I could do a series on the many, many reasons our ministry should move into the metaverse. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pastor Alina, so much for that story. And it gets when she sent that to me, I definitely got choked up on that one. Pastor Alina has such a powerful ministry in VR Church. To be honest, VR Church wouldn't be what it is today without Pastor Alina. And so, and that's what's, if I'm just going to be transparent here, a little frustrating when I talk with church leaders, when I see the conversation on Twitter, when they're so anti-online, anti-digital, anti-virtual reality. What are we going to say to people like Alina? Like, well, sorry, you're just going to have a second-rate spiritual experience for the rest of your life. Man, I can't wrap my brain around that. I can't even accept that. And so I think that I hope in the coming years that church leaders' attitudes change towards that 100%. Because really, there's getting into VR Church, I've discovered so many reasons why. It's health issues, severe social anxiety. One attendee, he's just on a nuclear sub in California. He's on port. He can't physically leave his station. There's a zillion reasons why, and we can get angry or upset. You should be attending a 1-hour event on Sunday morning, and that's great. This is not an anti-physical movement. It's not an anti-physical gathering thing. It's just we have this new technology, an empowering way to reach people, to create spiritual community for people that can't come to church, won't come to church, and I think that our attitudes have to change. We have to do a radical shift into the new. So anyways, there's a little soapbox on that. So Here's an image of Pastor and Lena hanging out with one of our other church members, Alice, in VR chat, hanging out, having some community and connection. I want to talk about experimentation with, I know we're doing a hard transition here, emotional, doing a hard cut just because of time. Avatar sermons. Let's see here. I want Pastor Zach, actually all three of you, Zach, Pastor Zach is from VR Church. We're going to have you all just come together. JPO, you're going to stream your services into VR is probably what you're going to do with your 2D web church. But I think, and I want to give you the encouragement to as soon as possible, get into Avatar sermons. So Jason, Jate, Zach, if you can come on stage. JPO, you could have easily broadcast your sermon. Why did you go Avatar preaching?
And and again, I know there's people that will live stream their sermons even now on some VR platforms, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But the metaverse is definitely way more relational than I've ever seen in most church contexts. I love the physical church, like you said, but sometimes just the busyness of our culture, the individualized, consumeristic nature, people are ready to get out to the Sizzler and get their steak and soup and salad bar, right? They just don't. In the metaverse, people are there to congregate and to meet and connect. And so for me to just do a live stream sermon, it just felt like it didn't fit that culture. I think they really appreciate having a person there who can interact with them, talk with them, and just be present. And so that's why I chose to do that, to be in there and actually preach live and talk with them after. We have Q&A afterwards every Sunday, and they stick around. As I need to wrap it up right now, I'm a long-winded guy, so my sermons tend to go a little bit long, and then they stick around for another 45 minutes asking questions, and they just love to be together, and I love it.
Jade, you've been a guest preacher at VR Church several times. What was your experience? What did you think? Like the first time coming in, like maybe not knowing what to expect, and at the end of the day, what do you feel about Avatar sermons, Avatar preaching?
Oh yeah, I mean, just something that we already all have talked about in the past. But every avatar is a person. Like there's a person behind the avatar, and some people just don't. I think they don't even understand it. I've actually had somebody tell me, well, they're not real people, right? Like most of them are just robots, or like that they're programmed AI or something, which is it's kind of funny, but it's also sort of sad that that's just what some people believe, that they're just programmed robots or something. But these are real people, and they have real stories. And I've often said that the best and worst thing about the internet is that it's anonymous. And when you're in a space like this, where you're talking directly to somebody, my first experience with somebody is usually they don't have anything to hide because it's anonymous. And at the same time, because they can just leave at any point in time, right? It's the internet. Then they can come in and out. And so the thing that, like what you're saying with the time constraints, the amount of time that they would spend driving to and from a place, like that's now time that we get to actually hang out with people. So just the amount of time I get to spend with people is right up until the point that they have to go and leave. And that anonymous nature allows for people to be very open. So I might have a friendship in person where my first experience with them, I could go years without them telling me that they deal with depression. And my very first experience with people in an online space, not even just necessarily in VR, but obviously as a live streamer and just in general, it turns into, well, I'm dealing with these things, and my prayers are a lot more specific, I find, on the internet. And that's my experience. That's what I've seen. Preaching in VR, I will say I really liked that we were able to walk. I got to preach at one of your churches, DJ. So it was like, rather than just reading it and pointing at something on the screen, and that in that specific world that we were preaching in, was able to kind of walk around the world and experience it as we went, and said, well, we're going to walk past the water, and then we're going to go walk past the, so this ability to do some things that you can't do in a physical location is very interesting to me. I don't think that that's necessarily the like selling point of this, but it is nice to see that while there are some things that maybe don't work as well, like we were saying with the worship and the lag and stuff, I think these things will be fixed over time, but there are things that are significantly better in VR and in just online in general. So yeah, it's kind of, I guess that's the experimenting side of things. We figure out where things work and where they don't, and we try to,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah. And I remember someone talking to you after you preached at VR Church that they really needed that. And I think they were at a military base. I don't even know where.
Right.
I can't remember where they were. And so, yeah, you're just connecting. I don't know. The connection is amazing. Pastor Zach is a teaching pastor ordained with VR Church, and he is part of our teaching team. Zach, I mean, as a teacher for VR Church, it's one of your main responsibilities in our ministry. Tell us about your experience. What do you think about it? And what do you have to say to church leaders who are like, man, I don't know about avatar preaching?
Well, for me, I had to change my preaching style a little bit because I'm the kind of speaker that I like to have good notes and a good outline in front of me. And when we started in alt space, I tried a couple ways to keep an outline in front of me, and it didn't work too well. To be totally honest, the technology in alt space wasn't great for me to have notes in front of me. So sometimes when I need to speak and I have a lot of notes and I really want to make sure that I don't miss any points that I definitely want to make sure get across, I'll actually preach from 2D mode, and so I will use my computer instead of my headset, and that way I can keep notes in front of me and kind of cheat a little bit. I do always feel like I'm missing out though a little bit when I do that. It feels much less immersive. I feel a little bit less connected, and I don't know if other folks feel the same way, but I imagine they might. Like, I don't have hands. It's very obvious that I'm not in that world. So one of the things that we've done in one of our teaching styles at VR Church is we'll take a passage of scripture and we'll go through that passage. And so it's a lot less of like, let me pick and choose kind of this point and put it into the message that I want to teach, and it's teaching directly from scripture. And that actually, first off, I think is in a lot of ways is a better way to teach anyway, but it works really well in VR Church because I can take my notes and I can look at the verses that we're going through. And if you talk to like memory experts, memory champions, they'll tell you a lot of times, well, if you imagine that you're walking into a house and this point that you need to talk about is represented by this space. And then you turn left into this hallway and that's your next section that you're thinking about. And the cool thing about VR is we get that. Like that's kind of, we have an awesome build team that builds these environments for us. And so I can hop into the build early with a copy of my notes, walk through and associate different parts of the build to, okay, this is going to remind me that I need to talk about this thing. And this is going to remind me that I need to talk about this thing. And it makes it a lot easier to have those notes and those points that I really want to make sure that I get across to everyone and still have that sort of immersive experience with them as well.
Yeah, I love it. Man. Yeah, thanks guys so much for your input on that. We'll bring you guys back up here in just a little bit. And so, yeah, let's talk about trolls for a second. And one of the things that you have to think about if you open up your metaverse ministry, your metaverse church to the public, I think you should start out private. Getting the small group going, you're experimenting, you're exploring, you're doing all that. But you just have to be prepared for some trolls, people that will particularly in VR chat. It can definitely be a trolling experience, and just having the mindset, the patience, the love to be able to handle that, I think is very important. So the team, this is kind of like a, hey, don't forget to mention this because this is something we actually don't think about because we're so used to it. Like if somebody were to come up to me and just, scream at me and cuss at me or do whatever and get in my face, like this happened so many times, I don't even think about it. But can you imagine happening that at your physical church? I think that would be like the talk of the town, right? So that's just something to keep in mind, being familiar with the technical and moderation capabilities. All right, we're going to do questions after. I know there's a bunch. We'll trying to keep this to 90. We'll keep moving here. If we can throw this poll up, really just curious if you have a community that you call a community that's exclusively online. There's no right or wrong answer for this, by the way. Just curious if like online community, that's such a new kind of a foreign thing, where some of you are like, yeah, I have an online group. We meet in, this platform, that platform, we hang out, we do this, we do that. No right or wrong. Just curious if you have an exclusively online community that you hang out with. So the previous polls looks like, what stage are you in the metaverse? 88% is exploring the possibilities. 12% is ready to launch. So it looks like we'll let that poll run for a bit. But for time's sake, let's go right into day 3. And that is, we've explored, we've experimented, and now you're ready to establish a church. There's not a whole lot that we want to chat here, but I do want to encourage you on a couple of things. I really want to encourage you to launch an experience, whether it's an alt space, recommended, a VR chat, Rec Room, or Horizons. Let's get in there and launch some metaverse ministries and metaverse experiences. Man, I would love to see in the next few weeks, in the next month, man, email me. I think my email is going to be in the show notes. I want to know if you launched a small group. That should be like an easy one to get going. Get 2 or 3 people, get them committed, say, hey, we're just going to do a metaverse small group and let's go hang out. You're exploring, you're experimenting, but man, I would love to see it. Small groups come out of this. The second thing, if you are an online campus, if you have an online campus, metaverse campus is a no-brainer. That's the evolution of church online. That's the where we're heading. And so where the interaction is face-to-face. So getting your online, hopefully your online campus pastor is here. If not, get him the show notes, get him this video and say, it's time to start thinking, excuse me, about a metaverse campus. Youth experiences, right to Rec Room. Just go right there. You can check out Altspace. You can check out Horizon. That's cool. But I'm telling you, man, get into Rec Room. I think you're going to really enjoy it. And there are those of you that are here. Maybe you're not part of a church. You're not part of a ministry or organization. Man, there is a lot of ministry to be had. And that's why I've underlined that. Metaverse ministry. We're talking about launching these official functions, but there are people in here that need to go into the metaverse and discover what can be done because we're just getting started. We barely know what this is going to evolve into. So the blank or the canvas is blank, ready for you to paintbrush your ministry. I saw someone in the chat talking about prayer, creating a prayer world, a prayer ministry. There's all these things that the metaverse needs. You think of like unreached people groups like in Africa or Asia. The metaverse is now the largest unreached people group as far as ministry, opportunity, connection. We're not going in there to convert or colonize. We're going there to connect and have conversations. And that's what's going to lead ultimately, I believe, to transformation. So metaverse ministry, I mean, those are just should be popping up left and right. World hopping, encouraging people, loving people. And like Pastor Japo said, even like in VR chat, people need that. If you're also like, man, I don't know where to start in any of this, check out a VR church. Join Pastor Japo. Say, hey, can I help out? Can I greet? Can I pray? Come to VR church. Check out all the other VR churches that are happening and just hang out with them, learn ministry from them. And yeah, we're all trying to figure this out. This isn't, I guess this is a framework and I suppose a model, but man, I think it's more about experimenting and exploring than me saying this is how it should be done. We'll do questions in a second. Let's see. I want to do a couple of things. Metaverse technology. I really want you to see this, and that is a translating in virtual reality. So we're kind of going into like overtime here. You got to see this though. This is interesting. Coldest, let's play with the translation video. What I'm saying in English translates to German, right?
Ja, ich kann lesen, was du sagst in Englisch. Das übersetzt automatisch ins Deutsche. Und ich sehe, was du sagst.
This is amazing technology where we can talk to each other in different languages and immediately have it translated over our shoulder.
Ja, das ist schon etwas ganz was Besonderes, ganz was Neues.
I think we're going to have to try it sometime.
Ja, ich denke auch.
So this is Enrique. He's from Germany. He comes to VR Church, and our conversations are very much like, hey, how are you? That's pretty much about it. Altspace has this new tech where you can speak, and it shows up as a bubble over your shoulder. That's fantastic. Love to spend some time talking about that. But let's look at sign language in VR. Let's do that next video. Hey, everyone. What's up? My name is DJ Soto, and I'm the lead pastor of Virtual Reality Church. And we're really excited about our new church plant that's coming very soon. And we're going to have more details about that in the coming days. But what we also are excited about is that in our new church plant, we're going to have sign language for the deaf community. I'm so excited about that. I've been thinking about that for months. And here's my new friend, Jenny, and she's going to be one of our new volunteers who's going to be interpreter for one of our services at our new church plant. Jenny, do you mind turning around so people can see your yeah, there you go. It says interpreter. So if you come to our service and you see interpreter behind on her back, and you're part of the deaf community, you'll definitely want to connect with Jenny. And we are so excited about that. Thanks, Jenny. And so just for time's sake, that video will be on the show notes, so you can check that out later. Just a couple of final thoughts for you to think about as we kind of wrap up this whole webinar, as we kind of the landing gear is coming out. There's some things I want you to think about. We're just going to hit some things very quickly. What about theology? You're trying to convince your church, your leadership about theology. And I believe that what we're going to experience in the metaverse is going to shape our theology. Let me give you a little story about that via Morpheus. If you remember that time in the Matrix when he tells Neo, you can't explain what the Matrix is. You have to experience it for yourself. All right, that, if I bottled that up and in our 5-6 years of doing VR Church, I could have taken that like understanding early on. I think that would have been a big help, because I've been in church conferences with this like pastors looking at me like I'm crazy. I've been at church conferences where I think there's like the heresy labels getting pinned on me as well. And I noticed one time that something was really unique. There was this pastor, he was in the audience. I was casting vision for VR Church. I had slides. I was doing what I'm doing here now. And he didn't tell me this until later, but he was thinking to himself, this is not right. You shouldn't be doing this. This is theologically incorrect. And I didn't know that. Met him, brought him to VR Church, got an extra headset. It's like, hey, come to church on Sunday. I got an extra VR headset. Put it on. After the church service is over, he took off his headset and he says, I need to be in a virtual reality ministry. So now, here's the problem with this theology section. If you're looking for a chapter and a verse, I can't give it to you. I do have some. I believe, where 2 or 3 are gathered. I definitely do. But I find that that doesn't convince people. The experience does. Once they experience VR Church, the brain comes on. That's like fundamentally the flaw of this webinar ultimately, is I wish like magically we could just have, boom, VR headsets pop up in front of everybody and you could put it on and all that I've said will make sense. If there's any theological reservations, it's all going to break through, because the experience of what we have experienced in the metaverse is going to shape the theology. Yeah, you think it's the other way around. You think theology would shape our experience. But I think in this, you've seen this in COVID era where the experience has shaped that. So that's something to think about. 3 stages to break through is should, could, how. And really what you want to get to is how. Should is kind of like we kind of don't know. Maybe that's where your church is at. Can is like you're kind of filtering through maybe this, maybe that. But when you get to how, where you believe that an online attendee is no different than a physical attendee, when you go full into that metaverse, I think that's where you're going to see breakthrough, because then there's no hesitation and you're really reaching people 100%. I believe you can do it all and then some. I think when I think of the metaverse ministry, I think that's powerful. One thing to keep in mind is reimagination versus replication. I wish we had more time to talk about this, where you're going to want to replicate one for one the church experience, but this is an opportunity for reimagination. Jason, maybe we'll do budget here just in a little bit, or maybe you can come on just for like a quick minute, because maybe people want to know about budget, and just give us like a 60-second thoughts on what it takes. What are the costs for a physical church wanting to launch a campus? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, you can, if you already have a good PC, you can do it for absolutely free. That's the craziest thing about this whole thing, is that you can launch a church. That would be a 2D experience like Pastor Zach was talking about. It's not the most ideal. It's best to be in there. So I would recommend definitely getting a headset at least. And that's, I think DJ probably already mentioned it. Oculus Quest is like what, $200, $300 now. And I'm sure that will drop in time. So that's, yeah, I mean, $300, you can actually have the full VR experience where you experience more of that connectivity that the 3D allows. And you really, there's not any other costs besides that. But if you want to go further, you want to expand. I mean, we just hired a Metaverse pastor this past year. And so there's some expense there. But we're also seeing, the church grow in the Metaverse, and people give. That's another thing. I think we've seen some comments, what are people, tithing? And yes, they do. I mean, it's not maybe to the same level that we see in the physical church, because people are just getting exposed to what church even is. but we have seen a lot of generosity. And so that's helped offset some of the costs that we've taken on for hiring a pastor, stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if that helps.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I mean, you could spend zero, or you could, expand and spend more and upgrade your tech, or maybe, we've purchased more headsets because we try to get some of our leaders to come in and be a part of the church. And we, that's one of the ways we kind of have that hybridization. We've got people that will come in and spend time from the physical church with the people in the metaverse. So that's, I wanted to take them all at the same time with me. So we bought a few more headsets so that could run your cost up just a little bit, but it's not expensive.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to do it. For all intents and purposes, VR Church was launched with $0, although we did spend money on the computer and VR. But as far as operationally, it was, now it's definitely grown from that. But yeah, to getting 2 or 3 VR headsets, some Oculus, it can be as little or as much as you'd want it to be. And then, at the higher end, yeah, you're buying headsets for at least 3 people. You've got a Metaverse campus pastor, you're kind of really bolstering that aspect. But Melody says here, one of her concerns is most under-resourced people will not be able to have the equipment to have this experience. And so I think that's true now, but I think like anything, it's going to be that's going to be less of an issue later. Like everyone has iPhones, everyone has smartphones, even like kids walking around with smartphones. And so I think it's a matter of time before the tech gets smaller, cheaper, lighter, and more people are going to have it. So, but that is a good point, that we are early on in the tech.
Yeah.
So just for time's sake, let's just go here to the end. The church of the future, decentralized. How can I feel free? Community-oriented. How can I connect? And experiences. How can I experience God? And what I really think, and I know sometimes I feel like, did you watch Back to the Future, Jason? What's his name? The spiky hair guy, the scientist, Christopher Lloyd.
Doc Brown, yeah.
Yeah, Doc Brown. When he comes back and his hair is like spiking all out, and he's like, Marty, the future, Marty, the future. Yeah, I feel like that at church conferences. I think the future of the church is the metaverse. Yeah. It's not an anti-physical thing. I think you'll still have physical experiences, but I think people are going to expect a metaverse experience in the future, a Web3 experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we are in overtime. Let me get Jake back in here. Final thoughts, final questions. After party coming up soon. We're going to email the show notes with those videos. Pastor Jake, any final thoughts you have for individuals here?
Oh man, final thoughts. Do it. You should do it.
Do it.
Yeah, just get started, right? Like that's the whole thing. Is it's experimenting. The thing I say on stream the most is every day people are coming and they're like, oh, I can't do this, I wish I could, and all that. And I always say it's 1% every day, 1% better. You don't go into this thing like you know how to do all of this stuff. It's not a don't even worry about the launch large model. A lot of people probably know different models or whatever, but don't worry about it because it just doesn't even really exist in this space. It's just part of the reason that I don't say I'm a pastor is because I feel like I'm on that verge between pastor and just mission, and that's how this is it's a lot of people who need this and they don't have it. And so you have an opportunity to bring it. And I think the harvest is plentiful and the workers are few. And, hopefully now after today, there'll be a few more. But there's a lot of people online and a lot of people on the internet, and they need people to reach them where they're at. And they're not the people that I know that I'm personally reaching. They're people that have zero thoughts about going to a church. It's not a question of like, is this church better or is that church better? They're not planning on going to a church. They've never heard the name of Jesus, or if they have, it's been in memes. And so you have an opportunity to really be the first real experience. And so, yeah, if that's something you're interested in, then maybe you should consider VR because it's hard to get that experience not in VR right now. And I'm very excited that we have that chance. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
Pastor Jason, any final thoughts?
Man, I mean, just what Jade said, man, the harvest is plentiful. It really is. It's amazing. I've been a pastor for 15 years now, I think. And I've always really wanted to fulfill the mandate that Paul gave to Timothy and to all pastors and all shepherds. You don't have to be a pastor to do this, but to reach the lost and to share the hope that is within us. And so I've done that throughout my ministry, maybe sometimes better than others, but I've shared the gospel more in the last year and a half than I have in my entire ministry. And it's because the opportunities are just so right there. As Jade said earlier, people are just so willing. Within 5 minutes, they will share some of the deepest struggles that they have. And we can bring the healing balm of the gospel. Now, they don't always receive it, of course, but we're just pointing them to, the old adage, we're just another beggar showing another beggar where to find bread. And we're just showing them the love of Christ. And it's been so restorative to my soul, honestly, to be able to constantly be able to minister to people in that way. And it really is real. It's so critical. Get out there. You will have so much blessing, even if you don't start a church. I mean, sorry, my camera. Pastor Brock, one of our good friends, guys, right? I mean, he goes out there and just goes into all these worlds and pubs in the metaverse, and he just goes up and starts talking to people, and they're so willing to hear. And he shared so much encouragement from Christ to all these thousands probably now that he's talked to. And it's just, the harvest is plentiful, the laborers are few. So let's do it.
That's true.
It's go time.
100%. Yeah. You're exploring, you're experimenting, but man, let's get to launching. El Michelle is with us. We're part of the governing board for VR Church, and I just brought her on. I just thought you had some just encouragement for our church leaders, and I thought maybe you could just share some thoughts about that. Except I don't think we can hear you, El. At least I can't. Let's see. Might have to check your permissions. Audio is not working. All right, we'll come back to you if we can get your audio working. And to wrap things up, let's have Jeff Reed come on, unmute your mic. Jeff Reed, Church Digital, sponsor for this seminar, and also some next steps, because some of you are like, man, I'm ready to go. I need some coaching. I need some cohorts. Jeff, tell us a little bit about what's coming up next.
Super. Hey, thanks for that DJ. I love, man, I'm so excited about this, the hundreds of people gathering together for this webinar, getting through the should, through the could, and then getting into the how of this. That was so eloquent. And really, it's that how piece with the Church Digital that we want to help with. We want to see churches on this bleeding edge getting into the metaverse, and we want to help you along that journey. And so we're offering some things here where we're putting together some cohorts and some online classes to give churches like yours practical steps to walk through this. And we reached out to some meta experts to join us with some of these cohorts, because just maybe some of these meta church experts would want to help you. And so here's what we're doing. We're putting together a cohort with DJ Soto, the bishop to the metaverse here, is going to be in the cohort with us. Jason Poling from Cornerstone VR, as well as Michael Uzdevinez, who is a very good world builder for Cornerstone VR and Cornerstone Yuba City, putting together a cohort of these people, and would love to have you guys join that. So you go to the church. I'm going to type while talking at the same time, thechurch.digital/coach, thechurch.digital/coach. I can do that. Type and talk at the same time. That's awesome. Check that out. But in addition to some of these cohorts and some of the digital communities that we're putting together for this, there's also an opportunity for some online courses that can help you in taking some of these first steps. Like, this was great, this was awesome, but you may need some more hand holding and some more next steps to work towards that. And so that's the heart of what we're doing with the Church Digital. DJ, thank you for the time. Thank you for the energy putting all this together. And for the rest of you that took part, Jate, Jay Poe, and some of the others, Alina, this was an incredible hour. And so thank you for the time.
Hey, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. All right, my friends, that is the end of the webinar. Thanks so much for everyone that's hanging out. We hope that you enjoyed it. Show notes will be emailed to you with links and videos, lots of information. At the top of the show notes is the Church Digital cohorts coaching. If you want to dive more into the metaverse, I think it's going to be powerful. And this webinar is free, but we would love if you would give a donation to Virtual Reality Church. There should be a link there to donate to the church, and that would be awesome and helpful. We're just going to take like a 30-second minute break. Hey, guys, if you have to go, feel free to head out. If you're on the chat, you have to go as well. But we're going to knock out some questions on an after party thing here. So I'll be back. We'll launch the countdown video there, and we'll be back in just a little bit.